Hi guys, it's me Lauren Gell. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so happy that you're here to hang out with me. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and follow. Do all those amazing things down below. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm just gonna point this out. I did get new lights. So I'm not just working with my ring light anymore. I have two small box lights to help with the darkness in the videos. But of course I'm in front of a window, so there is that glare as of right now because I'm filming at night. I'm kind of debating just turning this whole thing around. But I did want to make sure I get a video up, which is why I'm doing this. So, work in progress, but I have better lighting now. Just gotta work on the background. Anyways, if you clicked on this video, then you know what it's about. We're doing an end-of-year reading wrap-up. I apologize for all the noise. My cats have the zoomies. This always happens when I'm filming. What I'm going to go over is just kind of like how I did the middle of the year reading wrap-up, where I just talked about the books I read, if they were worth the read, if they weren't, trying to avoid giving spoilers in the mix of it all, going over what I'm currently reading, what I want to read, and yeah, let's just kind of dive in. Now, I will say all the books that I have read have been packed away. So, I will put pictures up here of the book in that I am talking about. So, if you are curious about it, it'll be up here on the screen somewhere. So, if you're into bookish videos, if you're into recommendation videos, then definitely stay tuned. And let's just kind of dive right in. I think that's all of the laundry list of things to go over. So, yeah. Let's just dive in. I feel like it's a chit-chatty video when I'm not wearing makeup. And that's fine. So, I will say my goal for this year was to read 24 books in 2024. I'm not gonna hit that goal because I definitely hit a bump in the road because the middle of the year in July, I quit my job that I was excelling at. I loved the job, and then I completely changed courses and I fell off of my reading goal, I'm not gonna lie. So that I think right now I'm currently at 19 books out of 24, so I'm at a 79%, which it's fine. It's whatever. I have 2 weeks left in the year. I'm probably not gonna hit my goal. So essentially, I'll put both of the books up that I was currently reading back during my June reading wrap-up, or my mid-year reading wrap-up, and I'll also link that video down below so you know what I'm referencing. In that video, I was currently reading Iron Flame and then The Inheritance Game, both installments in a series. The Iron Flame is the second installment in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, the Fourth Wing books. Basically about this girl, Violet, that goes off to a dragon academy where she learns to ride dragons, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. A lot of action in that book. I love the series. It's become one of my favorites. So I read that, loved it. I did pre-order the third book, Onyx Storm. So excited. I read The Inheritance Game, which is about a girl. Her name is Avery. She is a nobody, got a hard life, but then she just out of nowhere gets an inheritance from a man she's never met. Then she goes to the estate, the mansion. She meets everyone. And then basically she has rules that she has to follow in order to actually inherit everything within a year's time. And there's a lot that happens. A lot unfolds. So much going on. Loved the story. So those two books, absolutely loved. Which leads me to, I read the other two installments in the trilogy of the Inheritance Game series. So Hawthorne Legacy and The Final Gambit. Hawthorne Legacy was really good, a really good sequel. And then The Final Gambit was a really good way to round it. It's almost like each book, the thrill of each book topped the previous book. And it just escalated so crazily, but so well, that by the third book, it's almost how are you going to wrap this up in a 3-book series? How are we going to do this? But it gets done. Phenomenal way it ends, and then it basically set up the installment of a completely different spin-off series, which I do have one of the books, the first book in that series, which I'm not going to spoil anything, but basically, Avery, surprise, surprise, she does inherit the inheritance, and then basically does something phenomenal with it, and then that's what sets up the following spin-off series, which I'm super excited to get into. And then another installment in the Inheritance games was the Brothers Hawthorne, which was basically giving more filler information to some of the characters from the Inheritance game. Which, when you read the Inheritance game, the brothers Hawthorne, or the Hawthorne brothers, they are the grandsons of the man that gives the inheritance to Avery, the main character. And it's kind of like, she's in the book, but she's not the main character this time. It's about the brothers. I love their perspective on like what was to come after like the 3 books. Really, really enjoyed those. So, the first one after that was You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. That book, wild. So definitely was like cabin in the woods vibe. Geneva Rose is so good with like crazy spins and twists and turns. It was a pretty short book. I think it was like under 300 pages or right around 300 pages, but a lot unfolds. And it's like, she gets me because I'm usually really good at figuring out a storyline, but she always adds something extra to it that throws me off. So I really loved that one. She meets this guy, a lot happens, he's crazy, she's crazy, the crazy intertwines. Wild times. Wild times. I really enjoyed that book. This is the second book I've read by her. The first one I read was The Perfect Marriage. I really like her writing. Really, really like it. I also read Verity by Colleen Hoover, which a lot of people don't like Colleen Hoover. I don't know why. Verity's the only book I've read by her, and I really did enjoy it. That one was about this girl who is basically a writer, and she is finishing a book by another woman. And when she goes to live there to like write this book, she uncovers some things about the husband, their daughter, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then the entire time, there's some crazy stuff happening with the wife. But she's basically supposed to be a vegetable, but crazy things happen. It almost gives a supernatural vibe, but it's not necessarily, and it's just crazy. I know they're making a movie out of it, which I think it would be a really good movie if it's done well. I really did enjoy that one. And I'm curious to see how the movie comes along because it could be a hit or miss. We'll see. And then I got into Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. So good. It was so good. So I am trying to read them in order, but Outlander, the series, there's like 9 books. There's like 15,000 short stories and novels and novellas and a whole world of its own. The woman's been writing it for like, what, 30, almost 40 years at this point or something like that. I can't remember when Outlander actually was published, but I believe it was the 80s. First published in 1998, Lauren. You're an idiot. Literally, it tells me here on Goodreads that it was first published August 10th, 1998. So, in the like chronological order, there was a novella called Virgins, which was about the love interest in Outlander, James Fraser, his backstory. Now, these are like period piece romance books about 1740s Scotland. But the twist of it is Outlander is written in the perspective of Claire, who is a 1940s World War II nurse from Britain. So she's a British nurse, and I'm like describing this poorly. But she somehow time travels back to 1740s Scotland when the like clans were fighting. Is it the French or the British Army? The British Army. When the clans were fighting the British Army, and then I forget what it's called, but basically the clans were like forced to, when they lost, they were forced to either concede and like dismember the clans or whatever and become part of like the British reign. So she's 1940s, got more freedoms than a girl from the 1740s. So she time travels back 200 years, meets this clan called the Mackenzies, and then falls in love with James Fraser. When I tell you, it was one of the best written books I've ever read. It's a very long book. And there's a lot of people that said it moves slowly. I never once found like a very slow moment in the book. Like, because of how much description is in every page. So to me, the descriptive language, it literally played out almost like a memoir of this girl, Claire, who time traveled. Because it was written so well in the perspective of this woman, so well crafted. It's impeccable. It's some of my favorite writing, honestly. Don't get me wrong, there were some like really sexual scenes. Some were very graphic because they are, geared towards how women were treated in that time and how they were treated like property and not as people, if you catch what I'm saying. So very graphic in the depiction of like those terrible times for women. But then on the other side of that, the moments that she has with the love interest, phenomenal. Even just the way that this woman can describe a longing stare is amazing. It's immaculate. I love it so much. It's such a well-written book, and I understand why people love it. Now, it's a commitment. It's a commitment to read it. But I'm telling you, when you read the first one, you're gonna want to go into the whole series. So you might as well just read them in chronological order. The last physical book I read was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This one was pretty good. I can't remember the synopsis of it. Let me see if this tells me on Goodreads. When Chloe Davis was 12, 6 teenage girls went missing in her small Louisiana town. By the end of the summer, Chloe's father had been arrested as a serial killer and promptly put in prison. Chloe and the rest of her family were left to grapple with the truth and try to move forward while dealing with the aftermath. Now, 20 years later, Chloe's a psychologist in private practice in Baton Rouge and getting ready for her wedding. She finally has a fragile grasp on the happiness she's worked so hard to get. Sometimes, though, she feels as out of control of her life as the troubled teens who are her patients. And then a local teenage girl goes missing, and then another, and that terrifying summer comes crashing back. Is she paranoid and seeing parallels that aren't really there, or for the second time in her life, is she about to unmask a killer? Another thriller. I feel like there's a theme. I love a good thriller. This one was really good. I figured out the ending, like who did it, probably before halfway through the book. I'm not gonna lie. But I will say, even though figuring it out and being correct about who did it, I don't know why I did that, but I still will say that the ending was interesting. And that's what I love about a good thriller, is not that I can't figure it out, because I feel like story endings are just redundant at this point. There's so many out there. How original can you get? But it's the way that you get to the conclusion that made it worth it. If you, like, I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but I thoroughly enjoyed this read. There were a couple slow parts, but then it would always pick back up when in reference to like her father or whatever. It was also interesting because there's a little bit of like serial killer analytics sprinkled throughout, and if you're a true crime junkie, then that was really good. But yeah, it was a well-rounded thriller, I guess is the best I can say. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't bad. It's not one that I think I would reread, but I enjoyed it as a first-time read, Then we get into the 2 audiobooks that I read, and this is the only reason I read them like that. Well, I'm counting them because they're books that I did finish. I'm not counting them as like actual read books, but I did finish them in 2024. Call it cheating if you want. I don't think so. I found out that if you have premium Spotify, you can listen to audiobooks. Not all of them, but like some. And there's a lot of books that I've been wanting to read that are on there. So it comes in handy because I'm definitely someone that I like an audiobook because I like the convenience of listening into it when I'm in the car or something. But I also like physically reading a book because I can always like go back and reread something if I didn't get it, or if I want to go back and pay attention a little bit more. The 2 books that I listened to basically on my way to and from work was The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, and then The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Ukehart. I don't know. Anyways, The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. Again, another very popular TikTok. She's really popular on TikTok for her thrillers. So this book was one that flipped between past and present. In the present, it was in the perspective of Sydney Shaw, the main character. But then past was in reference to basically like her love interest and his upbringing. So it was interesting because you saw like who he becomes and why he acts the way he does towards her, which she finds suspicious. So it's really nice because it's kind of like, what's it called in movies when like the audience knows of something but the characters in the movie don't? I can't think of the terminology for that, but essentially that's what happens in the entirety of this. As the story plays out of what happened in the past, you see it unfolding in the present, and it's like you're almost the entire time like, girl, I wish I could tell you. If I could tell you to run, I'd tell you to run, you know? But obviously it's a book and you can't. So good. So good. I really enjoyed it. This is one that I definitely could see myself reading again at some point, even though I know the ending, because the way it plays out was so good. And then The Butcher and the Wren, this is actually a book that I physically had read when it first came out, which was in 2022. So the author of this book is one of the co-hosts of the podcast Morbid. Love that podcast. It literally got me through basically the entirety of my internship with UPS before I moved up here. So I read the physical book. Didn't like it as much when I first read it, but then I listened to it and it was so good because this book is about Wren Muller is basically, what is she called? A medical examiner, and she is someone who knows of the serial killer, but the way that she knows of him plays out, and I didn't catch on until towards the end of the book when I first read it. But this is obviously one that I enjoyed listening to again, and I think because I listened to it, sometimes the way that characters are depicted through voice just animates them so much more, which makes it way more real and more interesting, because some of like the dialect and the tone of voice is not captured in my mind as well as it can be displayed by other people. So it was really good, and once more emotion was put behind some of the like dialogue, it made it so much better, which is why I think I enjoyed it more as an audiobook. I have the physical book, and I'm so happy I held on to it because this is another one that I would definitely go back and reread. And the reason I read it is because there's a second installment in this series from this like examiner's perspective. I wanted to read that one and then I fell off on reading, so that's definitely one I want to pick up here soon. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one too. It was really good. Now we get into what I'm currently reading and what I like plan to read. I started reading Credence by Penelope Douglas because this is one that a lot of people, again, it's really popular on TikTok. I am about halfway through. There are like 500, a little over 500 pages. I'm at like 230. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it because it's kind of gross. It's almost the kind of like vulgar reaction you get when it's so alarming that you can't look away. You know what I'm saying? So basically this book, this girl, her parents die. So she goes to live in a cabin in the woods with an uncle that she's never met and then his two sons. But he's like her step uncle and step cousins, and they're like backwoods, like live off the land almost, like farm people, right? It's kind of disgusting in the sense of this girl, Tiernan DeHaas. Tiernan, I don't know her freaking name. But she's a child of a famous film producer and movie star. So she comes from like a big lavish life, but her parents didn't care about her basically. She was just someone in the house because her parents were busy. So she doesn't know normal lifestyle, right? So then she goes to live with Jake Vanderberg, which is her father's stepbrother. So it is her step uncle. And his two sons, Noah and Caleb. Noah is like the good kid, does what his father says, doesn't enjoy it, but he does it. And then Caleb is like the bad boy, weird dude that like is mysterious. So everyone has like one of those like typical romance tropes of like enemies to lover, or like the best friend turns to lover type of situation, bad boy to lover, you know? But the issue is that I have with it is it's like her step uncle. And granted, I'm only halfway through it, but the amount of sexual, not even undertone, sexual tone that is derived from her lusting after her uncle and brother or cousin's step family is so gross. And there's a lot of it. And it's so uncomfortably gross that it's like I want to read till the end. Because there's definitely something off about them. And I want to know why they like are off. And the problem is that I can't just bypass all of the sexual conversation in here. Because it is part of the story. But it absolutely makes me want to throw up. I have like a visceral reaction to reading this book. And I knew going in, because I've watched people do reviews and like react to the book and, you know, watch the reviews without spoilers and stuff. And people, like, I thought I was fair warned about this book, and that didn't help. It didn't help. It didn't set me up for success in reading this book. It's the reason it has taken me so long to get through this, because I've probably had this on the coffee table for almost 2 months, is because it's a tough one for me to get through. By my mid-year update next year, you'll find out if I actually finished it or not. It might take me that long to finish it because it grosses me out. So the second book that I'm currently reading, because I always tend to like go between 2 books, is Wicked. I did go see the movie because I was genuinely intrigued. I've always wanted to see the Broadway play, but obviously, like, nowhere near Broadway to do that. Never once been a fan of The Wizard of Oz. Like, don't get me wrong, it's iconic, it's nostalgic in the sense, but like, I'm not a Wizard of Oz girl. But I kind of really like the ideal of the story behind this book. But I also don't understand the world of The Wizard of Oz in general. I think the reason I've never been into The Wizard of Oz is because the actual world that is built doesn't make sense to me. It's not a fully fleshed out world for me to make any kind of connection to, so I'm not excited about it. But I will say, the movie was good. Side note, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good musical. I think it was done very, very well. And it made me want to actually read the book because I don't want to wait until 2025 to know what happens. Because the movie is split into 2 parts, and I didn't know that going into the movie. So that was a bummer. But yeah, I wanted to read this because on TikTok they were like, hey, this isn't a kid's book. The movie is kid-friendly, but the book is not. And I think on page like 2 or 3, they were talking about a hermaphrodite. Yeah, like a dialogue in here. She was castrated at birth, replied the Tin Wood Man calmly. She was born hermaphroditic. I didn't say that right. Or maybe entirely male. First off, I'm only on page 16. I didn't get far with this. But I am curious to read this, and I'm really intrigued to see if this sparks any joy for me as far as reading it. I don't know. It was something I wanted to pick up as a different kind of story. I'm reading this. We'll see what I think of it. I'm really intrigued. But other than that, obviously, I know I'm gonna read the Inheritance Games spin-off series. There's another book that I pre-ordered called The Games Untold, which is like all the little love stories that are intertwined in the mix of this, like the Inheritance Games trilogy. Onyx Storm, obviously. I also pre-ordered, I forget what it's called, but it's Hamish's story from the Hunger Games. I pre-ordered that, so I'll read it. I still haven't read the Hunger Games trilogy. I loved Songbirds and Snakes so much. I didn't really care for the Hunger Games movies, but I loved Songbirds and Snakes, the movie. And then I read the book and I loved it so much more. So it inspired me to want to read the trilogy. Because I had tried reading the trilogy when the movies first came out when I was in middle school, and I didn't really get into them. But I feel like me now at 25, understanding all of the symbolism in the movies, I think I'll like it even more now and appreciate it more now. So I definitely want to fit in the Hunger Games trilogy in there. What else? Outlander, I want to read a couple more of those books. ACOTAR is still on the list. If I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. I have a lot of other one-off books. I have a whole tote full of books that I need to read. So I'm on like a book no-buy for next year. It's so bad. I would love to read a couple more books from Frida McFadden. I know The Housemaid's a really popular one, but I know my main focus is going to be Onyx Storm, the Hunger Games books, which I have 4 of them to read, then trilogies, and then the Hamish prequel. We'll see. I told myself not to do a 2025 or 25 books in 2025, but if I could hit that, that would be great. I think I'm going to make it a loose goal. I think that's what I'm going to do. Because I tried 24 books, didn't get there. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah. Hopefully this one was a little interesting. I'm sorry. Hopefully it's a little bit shorter. But I think I'm going to wrap it up. Okay, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for chilling. Thanks for chit-chatting with me. Let me know down below what books you've read, what ones really like stand out to you that you've read this year. Any kind of recommendations you might have for me. I would love to like hear your thoughts and your recommendations, honestly, because I'm always wanting something a little bit different. I love a good thriller, so if you have recommendations, definitely put those down below. Hopefully I didn't spoil anything for you guys. I tried to keep these little like summaries as spoiler free as possible. Fingers crossed I did you justice. And I think, yeah, hopefully I read more books. I feel like I always start out strong, and then like the last couple of months, because of the like craze of the holidays and all of that, is usually when I fall off. So the mid-year review next year will probably be juicier than this one. But anyways, it's crazy to think that we only have, my nose itches. It's crazy to think we only have like 1 more video for the year. That's wild. And it's also crazy to think that I'm almost at a full year of videoing on YouTubing. That doesn't make sense. But anyways, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Do all those things down below. I would greatly appreciate it because you're already here at the end of this video hanging out with me. And I would love to see you in next week's video. And if you are curious to see what I read up until this year, definitely check out the link down below for my mid-year review. Without further ado, I hope you have a great day, night, whenever you're watching this. And I hope I see you in another one. And I hope you enjoy my lighting. Okay, bye.